With the MLB Draft upon us, I had the opportunity to speak with ESPN's MLB Draft analyst Kiley McDaniel about what goes into the evaluation of the mental side of the game with these draft prospects and who could be the next player to ascend through the minor league system like we saw Paul Skenes do this past year. And I first wanted to start off with something that isn't always talked about when evaluating some of these draft prospects, but I think in baseball, it's more important than any other sport. Not only with the long length of time that players can go through the development process throughout the minor leagues and the failure that can really come through that time. That's where I think the mental game plays such a big factor. But I spoke with Kiley more about how these teams really evaluate some of these mental traits and what he's seen over the past few years on what makes a player successful and not successful, depending on what goes into his mental game. So let's listen to his thoughts on that. I was just curious, from what you've seen in past years, a lot of the times, like, the scouting is mainly physical, but with what you've seen from the players that have succeeded and maybe not succeeded so much, what sort of mental traits have you noticed in those players?
So the process that, I guess the experience that I had as an evaluator, so like I would go in, see a guy, usually not talk to him, not talk to his family, not talk to his coach, just kind of sit in the background. I sort of likened it to like espionage. You kind of sit in the background, you watch stuff, you write things down, and you go back and report. And then there's other people on the staff, whether it's the decision maker, the scouting director at the top, or the area scout, nominally the person at the bottom, like the sort of, tip of the spear. They will like coach the player in like a prospect league or showcase, and then the very top is his first couple rounds. We'll go have a meeting with the family and talk to the agent, and sort of those two brackets on either side of me sort of come together and have all that information. I remember talking in one draft room I was in, they were talking about a guy's impulse control. And I kind of came in halfway through the conversation. I'm like, impulse control, what are they talking about? And they were like, oh, if somebody is impulsive, which you could probably imagine 10 different things that would be impulsive, probably think of a family member or a friend that are impulsive. They're like, that guy is not going to be as good at like work ethic or plate discipline or maybe staying focused as a pitcher into the second time through the order. Like, they're taking tests to measure things like that. And this was like 8 years ago. So now there's the sports science elements. There's all kinds of different things where people are trying to tease out the idea of kind of what you're getting at, which is how can we measure and predict how someone will approach the game, and thus 5 years from now when they are in AAA and have never failed before and now they fail, how are they going to handle that? And you can imagine, like with you 5 years ago, what are you going to be like today when someone gives you a problem? You might not know today what you'll look like when you get a problem later today and how you'll respond to it and what will happen and what someone watching you from the outside will think, or if someone's measuring metrics of what your heart rate does. Like, that's sort of absurd, but also that's why the money is there. Like, you're getting 7 figures so that we can figure out how you're going to respond to these things. So while I would love to give you a very detailed question about what these guys do, it is like probably, other than pitcher health, it is the hardest thing to figure out, and teams all go at it a different way, and they all change it every year when they realize that there are limitations. And I would say one other thing, which I mentioned in my book up here, Eric and I were trying to figure out like how to quantify makeup. Not that you can put a number on it, but we separated it into on-field makeup, like away from the ballpark makeup, and then sort of at the ballpark but not on the field makeup, and sort of gave examples of like, oh, Nick Swisher is good at 2 of those and can be kind of annoying with the 3rd one, and then like Cole Hamels was good at 2 and kind of wasn't good at the 3rd one. There's examples of guys that work out and don't work out doing that, and I think that's actually what teams kind of need to do, is really separate it into, these are the 6 very distinct things that we think predict this, and then figure out a way to score that, and then after 3 or 4 years go back and see if those scores were good. And I don't think any of them are really good at it. I think they're all just kind of flailing around trying to find an answer.
I do think, especially from his seat, it's a little bit difficult with, as a scout, viewing the numbers, looking at the tape, speaking with other scouts and other people within different organizations or the colleges or even the high schools. But I think as well, he gave some great insight on how there could be a little bit of a difference with the maturity of a high school player and a college player. And I think it's really interesting to sort of hear from somebody like him, who has seen some of those players who have that massive hype but don't end up working out. And I also spoke with Kiley more about some of what we should focus on with this year's draft. There's a lot of different exciting players at the top of the order, and we've seen players like Paul Skenes, last year's #1 overall pick, just ascend through the minors. I mean, he barely even pitched at all in AA and AAA and has been making a massive statement on the big league stage and even just got selected to his first All-Star game. Wyatt Langford is another one of those players. And I asked Kiley who in this draft could do the exact same thing or at least something similar. And he said this.
Even though this is a little bit unconventional from what we saw from the rise of Paul Skenes, I'm curious if there's any players in this draft that you think could have sort of the ascension up through the minor leagues like Skenes had.
Bazzana, I think, is incredibly polished for what he's trying to do. The only hesitation is because he played in the Pac-12, the amount of pitches he saw 95 plus, even if you include the Cape, is like 1/3 what the guys in the SEC saw. So we haven't seen that. Everything I see tells me he should be fine at that, but like I think he is the guy in this draft that, in the same way that obviously like Langford and Skenes are in the big leagues and Cruz is in AAA, I think Bazzana is the guy, and it also Burns. If he doesn't get hurt and the velo doesn't go up or down, if he just continues being the guy he is, I think that guy will also be in AA or AAA, if not the big leagues at this point next year. Condon, I think, is very good, but might take a little bit longer than those two. Weatherholt has some of the medical issues to worry about, and I don't think we'll get pushed a ton because they're trying to figure out, is he a shortstop? I think there's some reasons to hold him back a little bit. Caglione is another one that we don't know if he's going to fix the chase issue. If he just immediately fixes it, he might also be on that express train where he's just in the big leagues a year from now. But there's like some real stuff that makes me pause. And then pretty much everybody else, I'm not sure if they're good enough to do that. So as you may have guessed, like it's basically within the top 5, and not even all of the top 5 are the dudes that like might do that. And there isn't another guy that jumps out, because sometimes there's like a submarine reliever that I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be first at the big leagues because they're going to send him straight to AA. And then if they need a third, low slot righty, they'll call him up. I don't have one of those guys immediately. But usually there's somebody like that too. Or even like a Ben Joyce, where you're just like, he throws 104 and he gets hurt all the time. Like, just put him up there and we'll figure it out.
So now that Kiley's told us the players that could really ascend through the minors and take that leap to the majors after being drafted, let's look more into some of those players. Starting off with the projected first overall pick going to the Cleveland Guardians, second baseman from Oregon State, Travis Bazzana, who is looked at as one of the best hitters in this draft. That's why he's going first overall, potentially, because it hasn't happened yet. But looking at Kiley's assessment of Bazzana compared to the other best hitter in this draft, Charlie Condon, he believes that Bazzana has a more optimized swing rate, pitch selection, swing path, and style, and he's also maxed out his frame. But now looking at the other player that Kiley mentioned in third baseman for Georgia, Charlie Condon, who's projected right now to go second overall to the Cincinnati Reds, he believes that Condon has an elite combo of hit, approach, raw power, and game power with some defensive value. And with his 6'6" size, and his comp is Chris Bryant. And not to mention, he also won the Golden Spikes Award, so he's a pretty good player. The last player that Kiley mentioned that could really ascend through the minor leagues is Chase Burns, the right-handed pitcher from Wake Forest. And he's projected right now to go number 8 to the Los Angeles Angels. We all know, as everybody does, that the Angels need pitching ASAP. And Burns could really give them that front of the line upside, and is a power fastball pitcher with a great breaking ball, not great with his locations, and sparingly uses his third and fourth pitches. But if you were able to take something from this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because I got a great video coming out in the next few days with former Home Run Derby champion Todd Frazier. Him and I speak about this year's Home Run Derby and what advice he has for the new participants, and also what helped him be successful to help him win the 2015 Home Run Derby. But with all that being said, I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you and talk to you next time. Peace.